Howdy folks, today we are taking a look at an awesome new mod for Wargame Red Dragon called Annihilation. If you want to download this free mod, just check the link at the top of the description. Wargame Annihilation changes the time frame in which the game takes place. Whereas the original game is set in the mid to late Cold War, this mod intends to propel the game into the 21st century. Any unit that saw service from 1995 to 2022 can be added. Units that are supposed to enter service in or before 2024 have a chance to be added as prototype units. However, units that never saw service will not be added, such as the Russian Su-47 Bearcat or the American M8 airborne tank. Whereas Ashen Shadows mod seems to focus more on PvE and campaigns, Annihilation's goal is to have a balanced PvP environment. Annihilation's developers did say they are working towards some custom campaigns as seen in Ashen Shadows, but they are not released as of right now. In the background, you can see a 3v3 game I did as a US motorized deck with two similar US decks fighting alongside me, going up against 3 Russian motorized decks. Now this was the first time with the mod, and honestly it is very different from the regular vanilla experience. One thing you have to understand is that just as with Wargame Ashen Shadows mod, unit models cannot be changed or added. For example, the F-22 Raptor uses the in-game model of the F-15 Eagle. However, they can give them different stats and or weapons, which is exactly what Annihilation has done. Now, there's a lot to unpack here today, so let's get to it. First of all, there will be quite a few changes made to the game's nations. The developers felt that smaller nations like Sweden or Denmark in vanilla Wargame didn't really serve much of a purpose outside of being used in coalition decks, where multiple nations are available at the same time. Coalitions no longer exist in Annihilation, but they are replaced by something called alliances. Now these are groups of nations that would likely fight alongside each other. To give you an idea of the new nations and alliances are going to be adding, here you can see the developers' proposed nation list. As a heads up, the mod is still a heavy work in progress, and currently only the US, the UK, and a Dutch-German alliance are available for Blue for, with Russia and China, as well as an Indonesian, Thai, Malaysian, Laos, and Cambodian alliance available to Red for. Now I won't be going over all the changes, but a big one is that all the units besides Infantry and Recon will start off at Rookie or the lowest veterancy. Also, just like how top tier tanks were only found in specialized armor decks in vanilla, Annihilation puts top tier units in specialized decks only. For example, do you want access to the S-400 anti-air system? You gotta play Russian support. Do you want to have access to cruise missiles on board of aircraft? You'll have to play an airborne deck. This means that decks are more specialized than they were in vanilla Wargame. Now, a small change that will most probably be appreciated by most is the general limitation on helicopters for all non-airborne decks, which would make heli rushes a little less viable across the board. A cool addition is the ability to call in an air transportable fob. Yes, air transportable. A helicopter will deploy a full-sized fob somewhere on the map, which could be very useful for longer range airborne operations. Now these fobs are also increased to now have a total supply of 25,000. Infantry has been changed slightly. No longer can infantry only cost up to 35 points, meaning infantry can actually be more expensive in Annihilation. However, the more expensive infantry will be deadlier than in vanilla Wargame. Most often, these will be elite infantry with a 1-card limit, making them more like limited special forces versus the shock and awe unit that was semi-spammable in vanilla Wargame. A cool add-on is the ability for some infantry to carry top-down attack ATGMs, as well as fire and forget missiles. Now these fire and forget missiles are very dangerous, as the unit that fired the round, in this case an infantry squad, doesn't have to sit still to guide the warhead after firing. As you'll see in some of the background footage, light vehicles can be transported by heavy lift helicopters. This means you can add some heavier firepower to airborne assaults, as well as deploy vehicle CVs to the front line. I actually really like this addition, and I definitely want to experiment with what units can fit inside of a helicopter. As I said earlier, the heaviest anti-air, artillery, and even ballistic missile units are now limited to dedicated support decks only. Support units have been made a lot more expensive to try and stop people from just spamming artillery units in the back all day long. Top-of-the-line artillery units have been given a secondary ammo type with a faster aim time, a faster rate of fire, as well as better accuracy. Now these are meant to be used as a dedicated counter to enemy artillery units. These shells are a lot more expensive to rearm, units only carry a very limited amount of these, but their buffed stats will mean that people that use artillery will have to keep their units on the move after each volley to not get counter-batteried. Tanks receive a pretty decent buff, being overall cheaper with higher accuracy and better stabilizers, which is accuracy for on the move. Tank health has increased to 15, with maximum frontal tank armor slightly increasing from 23 to now 25 points. Most, if not all tanks have been given smoke launchers. It'll only last for a few seconds but can save your tanks in a pinch. Now, unlike Ashen Shadows, where a lot of heavier armored units have an APS system, tanks have been given an ECM stat in Annihilation. According to the developer, this means that a tank with, say, 10% ECM will deduct that 10% from an attacking unit's accuracy stat. Moving on to the Recon tab, something I use quite heavily in the background footage are drones. They can come in cheap and unarmed, or usually more expensive and armed with a small payload. They are called in via the air corridor in the bottom left and are usually slow, but they are actually quite cool. The US specifically has access to an AC-130U Spooky 2 gunship with the famous 105mm cannon, the 40mm pom-pom, and the 25mm chain gun. This was very cool to see, though I'm not 100% sure on what the best way to use it in Annihilation is just yet. Helicopters have seen some cool changes. One of them is the dual-purpose ATGMs. Now, some ATGMs have the ability to not only engage ground targets, but also other helicopters. Helicopters have also gotten a small ECM value, just like tanks, to help reduce the increased accuracy of AA missiles in the mod. Besides air-to-air ATGMs, there are now also specially dedicated anti-infantry rockets with a decent amount of HE damage. Instead of having to get close and personal with the chain gun or unguided rockets, these longer-range anti-infantry weapons can knock out infantry from afar. Aircraft have seen a decent overhaul, with SEED or anti-radar AA aircraft now having jammer pods. These deal morale damage to active radar AA, making them less effective. Stealth jets like the Su-57, F-35, or F-22 have been given high amounts of ECM, ranging anywhere from 45 to 60%. However, you can usually only get 1 or 2 per deck, and these specialized planes can only be found in certain decks. A crazy addition are cruise missiles, though sadly I didn't get to see or use any in the first game I played. I do plan to check out some of the other crazy stuff in Annihilation in a video soon. The final addition in the air tab is the AWACS, or Airborne Early Warning and Control Aircraft. These not only jam enemy radar AA, they can also spot stealth aircraft and jam air-to-air missiles, making enemy air superiority jets less effective. So this was really more of a descriptive look at the new Annihilation mod for Wargame Red Dragon. I do plan to play more of it, checking out some of the new additions in the near future. Personally, I hope we see some custom campaigns, as those are my favorite feature of Red Dragon. Now, Ashen Shadows did do a really good job with those campaigns, but obviously there are some slight differences between Annihilation and Ashen Shadows. For now, I would like to end the video by thanking the Annihilation mod team for answering all my questions, and I hope you like what you saw from the mod so far. Definitely let me know what you think of it, and I hope to catch you in the next one.